Good morning. Thank you for joining the Maryland Chamber Foundation's Promoting Equity and Inclusion in the Workplace series. Please ensure that all attendees are muted and in listen-only mode with cameras off. Please also add your questions to the chat feature to type for our speaker. And if we're not able to get your questions, please reach out to the Maryland Chamber at mdchamber@mdchamber.org. Today's webinar will be recorded and added to the Maryland Chamber's Equity and Inclusion resource page, as well as to our YouTube channel. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Ross, the President and CEO of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce and the Maryland Chamber Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today for our second webinar in the 6-part series, Promoting Equity and Inclusion in the Workplace, sponsored by BG&E. We'd like to give a special thank you to our Comcast for supporting today's session on reducing bias in the workplace through hiring, retention, development, and promotion. The genesis of this series is the Maryland Chambers Foundation's desire to create better understanding and a culture of action that any employer can undertake to form a more inclusive workplace. It is an indisputable fact, no matter the industry, diversity and inclusion have to be a business imperative, realized as a core part of a company's collective purpose. I'd like to now introduce our Comcast panelists for today's program. Joining us are Mary McLaughlin, Senior Vice President, Comcast Beltway Region; Kelli Hill, Vice President, Customer Care and Diversity and Inclusion Lead, Comcast Beltway Region; and Loren Hudson, Vice President, Human Resources, Comcast Beltway Region. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to Mary.
Hey, Christine, good morning. Thanks so much for inviting us to join you today. I'm really excited to be here. As Christine noted, I'm responsible for Comcast Beltway Region, which covers Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C., as well as parts of Delaware, North Carolina, and West Virginia. I'm really excited to be here today with my colleagues and friends, Loren and Kelli, to talk about Comcast NBC Universal's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and how as a company, we're really working hard to reduce bias in the workplace through hiring, retention, development, and promotion. You know, as a company, we strive to make every one of us, every teammate feel valued and respected for who they are and what they bring to the workplace. And this is not new. It's something we've been working on for a long time. I joined this region about 5 years ago, and pretty early on, I recall a meeting among the leadership on unconscious bias. We had Maura Cullen come in and talk. She has a great book out there. It's called, let me think for a minute, 35 things well-intended people say that increase the bias gap, right? And it's things that we've all said over time, like asking someone who looks different from us where they came from, right? So we've all made those unconscious bias statements. So that was 5 years ago. We've done so much since then, including multiple trainings with leadership, multiple conversations with the whole organization, creating a D&I council, etc. And while we've made some progress, we know that there's still so much more to do. What we hope to talk about today and to share with you is some of the things that we're doing at a macro level for Comcast NBC Universal, but some of the things that we're doing locally, which I think will provide a lot of great ideas and perhaps some best practices that you can adopt and grow within your own organizations. From a macro perspective, as a company, we've announced a comprehensive multi-year plan to allocate an additional $100 million to fight injustice, inequality against any race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, etc. And we really want to make sure that we're, not only investing $100 million, which is a ton of money, but we're creating programs for our teammates and for our customers that are sustainable and will really go forward and change the culture of the country we're living in now. Christine said it well. It is a business imperative. We know if we have a place that's diverse and provides equality and inclusiveness, we're going to attract the best talent to Comcast. We also know they'll allow us to be more innovative and more successful. So we're in, and we're excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing here today. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kelli Hill.
Thanks, Mary, and good morning, everyone. I'm Kelli Hill, Vice President of Care for Comcast's Beltway Region, but I do also lead the diversity and inclusion efforts for the Beltway Region. You know, I think Mary just said it best. D&I, diversity and inclusion, is really part of our company's DNA. And while it is a core value for us, we also recognize that in order for us to continue to grow in this space, we need to be willing to constantly reflect and to reevaluate. And that's where we are right now. So with COVID-19 pandemic, with the growing calls for social justice and equality, we also know that now more than ever, we need to be the company that listens, that learns and responds to the feedback of our employees, understand the needs of our employees, and really help to contribute to their success. So I'm excited, like Mary, to be here today to talk about, you know, this very important topic. I hope that during the discussions, you're able to get learnings and even just small nuggets that you can take and apply to your current and future workplace. So again, excited to be here. And I'll turn it to Loren.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here too. My name is Loren Hudson. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for the Beltway Region. And I feel really honored not only to be on the panel with my colleagues, but these are two really strong, phenomenal women in leadership here at Comcast. One of the things that I find great value in as an employee of Comcast is that 62% of our employee population is made up of women and people of color. And Comcast has been a long-time member of the $1 Billion Roundtable Club, just based on our spending in the diverse businesses. So as Mary and Kelli had mentioned, we've made significant progress in the D&I space, or diversity and inclusion space, and we are continuing these efforts internally and externally, but really focusing over the last several months on our employee population and providing content to our customers. So I hope through our conversation today that we provide you guides, tips, best practices that we have implemented locally that can help you in your D&I journey and with your own businesses. So thank you, and really excited to be part of the conversation.
Great, ladies, thank you all for introducing yourselves. The topic is so important, and the qualities that each of you will bring to the conversation today just mean so much to us. So I'd like to start off with you, Mary. As Senior Vice President of Comcast Beltway Region, you're in a unique position where you get to interact with employees in all parts of the business. Will you share a little bit about what you're hearing directly from the employees and how it's helping you drive diversity and inclusion at Comcast, please?
Yeah, thanks, Christine. First of all, I just have an amazing group of colleagues, a couple of which you'll meet today, but go well beyond Kelli and Loren. And I'm very proud to be part of such a great team. And so one of the things I love most about my job is the ability to interact with my teammates in the Beltway region. And that ranges everything from, you know, the senior professionals you see here today to other teammates like technicians and our clerks in our retail stores or the call center or the government relations team. And I'm always listening and learning from them. And now I'm really learning a lot about diversity and inclusion here too. You know, following the killing of George Floyd, which by no means stands alone as an example of racism and tragic acts of violence against the Black community, but it was a trigger moment. And it was a moment that we as a company and we as a region felt like we had to lean in a little more heavily to in order to support our teammates and each other. And I had just said that we've done a lot of work up until this point, but it was really a trigger moment for us to realize that we had much, much more to do. And so we started really by listening to our teammates. I mentioned previously we had activated a diversity and inclusion council a little more than 3 years ago. So that's a group that we went right to. And we said, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? What's your point of view? What should we be doing? And we started having conversations at all levels of the region. And some were informal conversations, some were more formal conversations, some were specific to a particular function or a particular team. One of the things that we did was we created a guided conversation and opened it up to anyone in the region who wanted to participate. And we use Microsoft Teams at Comcast, and that's a great piece of technology. You can have a conversation, and you can also have a very robust chat conversation. And in this conversation, people shared their stories of how racial prejudice and injustice has impacted them, and how other acts of bias and prejudice have impacted them. And it was hard to participate in this conversation and not come out of it being incredibly impacted. Some of these teammates I didn't know, others I knew and worked with really well, and others were friends. And to hear their stories, people I admire, people I look to as role models, as a parent, or role models as a professional colleague, and to hear their stories of them being victims of prejudice or unconscious bias in their daily lives, it was really, really impactful to me personally, and I think it was impactful to everybody who participated in the meeting. And this information really gave us a basis on which to build our plan to fight racial injustice locally in the region. And Kelli will talk a little bit more about that, but it gave us good information that we needed to create resources and to create a plan. You know, we have a lot of tactics in play: video, virtual sites, articles, resources that we make available to our teammates. But they all come together to accomplish a few things. We want to make sure that we're showing our teammates that we're hearing them and that we are here for them. We want to provide everyone the opportunity to continue the conversation and continue to learn. And we want to make sure that we're providing our teammates access to resources that may answer questions for them. Maybe questions are uncomfortable asking. And so, you know, we go back, really wanted to put together a plan that accomplished all those things.
That's great, Mary. There's so much heart to what you just said, and a key word that everyone should take away, that as leaders, you listened and you invited everyone to the table to tell their story. And I think that's what's so impactful about the tactics that you're using. So thank you for that. Now I'd like to turn to Kelli. As the D&I lead, will you share some tactics that you and the D&I Council have created to help employees feel heard on topics that may be important to them, such as this?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think Mary did a great job of setting the stage of how we began this body of work. And it really was about listening. It was taking in people's feedback. But it was clear to us when we finished that beginning stage of this, is that we had to do a couple things. We wanted to create avenues to be able to provide people the opportunity to express themselves, to learn as much as they wanted, as well as to listen. And most importantly, we needed to set up a framework that allowed us to meet people where they are, right? Knowing that our employees were at different places. So we fast forward, that framework today is really now structured into 4 separate work streams. Each of those are meant to give our employees an outlet and whenever they want to use it. So let me talk through those 4 work streams and give you some additional kind of insight into them. So our first is what we call diversity roundtable. So these are conversational educational sessions. They are a little larger in format. They are supported by our D&I Council, our employee resource groups, or our ERGs, as well as our senior leaders. And during that time, we really try and cover three main areas. We want to help and hear people's and our employees' feelings. We also want to take the time for others to share not just their feelings and their personal perspectives, but what has their learnings been? What have they taken away from the conversations they've been having? And then we try and wrap up that dialogue with a discussion on how do we come together in difference? Because for us, it's really about how do we continue to lean into our Comcast community, learn more, talk more, break down obstacles. And that's usually a very rich conversation for us. Our second work stream looks similar, but it is a smaller, more intimate setting. It's cross-functional. We call it our diversity dialogues. Again, cross-functional in nature. That can be more topic-based, or it can just be an open forum if people want to have conversations. Our third work stream is what we're calling Tell Your Story of Impact. And Mary said it best. We've heard such feedback from our employees, from our colleagues, stories of impact, ways that they have been impacted, things that they've learned. And so what I love about this particular work stream, it really allows people to be their authentic selves. And by that, I mean, they can tell their story of impact, whatever way works best for them. So it could be a letter, it could be a quote, a video, a podcast, you name it. But it's really about, again, meeting people where they are and showing their true selves in a sometimes creative way. And then our last work stream really is what we're calling kind of our region-wide Microsoft Teams Support Resource Center. And so it houses not only articles and books and videos that can be used for learnings for all of us to learn, to go in and plop in, to look at something, to learn something a little more. But it also helps us to continue to keep the conversation going. So built into that platform is also every week there's a question of the week. So we're asking thought-provoking questions. We're asking people to give their feedback. And we're seeing how our employees and we're coming together with different feedback on that particular session. So lots going on, but I think it does all boil down to we need to meet people where they are. We need to give variety and choice for our employees, and again, help them to be able to have avenues that are comfortable for them.
That's great. I love that you're meeting people where they are. That is a great touchstone for how any business can begin to tackle this in their workplace. So kudos to you for that. Now I'd love to get Loren, bring her in. The human resource aspects of this have got to be fascinating and challenging. And so maybe you could tell us what other ways Comcast is promoting a culture of inclusion.
Absolutely. And Mary and Kelly have both covered some of the great ways that we are bringing kind of a menu to our employees of various ways that they could feel what we stand for, which is a culture of inclusion. So I would say from an HR perspective, at times, data drives us to specific areas where we have to pay particular attention. And I would say over the last couple of years, we've been focusing in some very targeted spaces. One would be women in tech. We realized a couple of years ago that women were only making up about 4% of our technical population. And because of that, we came out with a very targeted campaign strategy where we focused on our women technicians and creating videos and vignettes of those technicians, not only doing their day-to-day tasks, but also showcasing them in their personal lives as mothers, as daughters, as hikers, as dog lovers, you name it, making them relatable so that when people viewed our ads, whether it was on Google or Facebook, they realized that this could be an opportunity for them within our organization as a female technician. The campaign was very successful. We had about 6.4 million advertisement views. And over that period of time, we increased our female hires by 12%. And this was a best practice considered by one of our sister regions. They actually took it, applied it, and they actually hired an entire female class, which was pretty phenomenal. Another area that we focused on was our military community. So military spouses, I'm not sure everyone knows, but in 2017, they made up about 26% of the unemployment rate. So we were very intentional in creating some virtual opportunities within our care organization where we had 36 positions in a virtual space we hired military spouses, and it was very successful. And we continue today to have our military spouse population. And I think it's pretty amazing. We now have one that lives in Kansas, and they're still working for us in a virtual capacity. This upcoming fall, so as we move in and the leaves start changing, we're going to be focusing on enhancing our focus on people of color, especially around the talent and career planning perspective. So we have buy-in from our most senior leaders, our business units, all in that, where we are going to focus very strategic talent planning sessions that'll help elevate our people of color into leadership roles through developmental programs and pipelines. So again, this is very, very strategic, and we'll focus on this area. And finally, I would just say one of the great things that I love about our regions, but specifically about the Beltway region, is that we encourage our employees to be part of our ERGs, which are employee resource groups. We have 6 within the Beltway region, Black and
I can't hear Loren, so Christine is,
yes.
okay. So Loren, I can't hear you. I'm going to jump in and talk about our ERGs. We have the Black Employees Network, we have the Young Professionals, we have the VetNet ERG, My Abilities, the Women's Network. Kelly, what am I forgetting here?
I think you are there.
Okay.
Oh, yep, yep.
I only counted 5 on my hand, so but we have 6 of them.
Yeah. Out.
Thank you. And Loren, I jumped in because we couldn't hear you, but it sounds like your audio's back.
Oh, great. Am I good?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. The love of virtual. So apologies there. So for our 6 ERGs, our motto is you don't have to be to belong. And all of their content focuses around our core 4 model, which is career, commerce, culture, and community. So all of their programming and events are all aligned around those core 4. And where we can, we link many of our events together so that the ERGs not only have great content, but they have representation from all 6 of their partners from the other ERGs. So lots of great work there. I'm very proud of it. But again, this is a journey, and we continue to listen to our employees as we evolve and add new content and programs for our teammates.
That's great, Loren. Thank you so much. You talked about something that's near and dear to the Maryland Chamber Foundation's heart, and that's showcasing through video and experience the job opportunities for women and students who might not have considered working in a particular industry. That's just excellent. Good for Comcast. So the next question, I'd like to circle back to Mary. The COVID-19 pandemic has introduced a number of challenges for businesses, as you know. A big one being shifting from in-person events mostly, if not all, virtual. And when you remove the face-to-face conversations or the group meetings, some employees, those especially who are a little more introverted, may feel their voice is getting lost. Mary, how are you working with your leaders to ensure they're keeping that inclusive mindset when teams are so spread out?
Yeah, that's a great conversation. And probably like most of us on the phone, I have never led an organization through a pandemic. And it's an extended period of time, and there's no rule book here, so we're learning as we go. I think there are a lot of things that we're doing well, and there are a lot of things that we're continuing to evolve on. So you know, we really have a mixed organization. I never took people out of the field. We have technicians in the field, we have retail agents, and we have a big group of people who are working from home. And even with our folks in the field, we're not doing traditional meetings, to your point, Christine. We're not bringing techs into the tech room to have a meeting with 100 technicians to talk about what's happening in the business. So I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was very proud our IT team was really quick to deploy equipment to employees' homes, including cameras, including laptops, so we could create a virtual network of teammates. And so we, as I said before, leverage Microsoft Teams, and we do a lot of our meetings with Microsoft Teams. We, we don't always encourage people to turn on the cameras. I think that it's great when you want to turn on your camera, but being inclusive, for example, is allowing people to turn off their cameras during some meetings. And so really not trying to be judgmental for those types of things. We bring the leadership team together in the same cadence that we did pre-COVID, and just a little different look and feel, right? Using Microsoft Teams. We've stepped up some of our leadership team meetings via Microsoft Teams, just so that our leaders have the information that they need. And we have really creative people on our team. So they've found new and interesting ways to engage their teammates and to really bring out the voices in a virtual environment. So we use, the video platform, we use the chat, we use memes, group texting, videos, people creating videos on their iPhones and sending it out via a chat to their teams. We have leaders who will send lunch to their teams, again, to just maintain that personal connection. And the ERGs have been a fabulous resource for this as well, too, as the ERGs have been doing weekly happy hours on Wednesday evenings, just a general invite. We've brought magicians in, we've had trivia nights through the ERGs, and we've had some great substantive conversations through the ERGs too. So it's a little bit of everything. I think we're on, month 5 or 6 here. And every day we're all trying to be a little more creative and recognize that we need to engage our team differently.
That's great, Mary. I can tell you that personally, there are a couple of members of my leadership team that can tell when I'm stressed or not, and they are readily using memes, which invariably crack me up because I've not seen them, and they know that. So I love that, that little act of camaraderie. So let's follow up with one for you as a leader, and you externally. How has COVID changed the way that you're interacting with candidates?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually doing some hiring for my team right now, and we're doing it all virtually. We're doing the interviews virtually, no in-person interviews, and we're using structured platforms like Microsoft Teams and Modern Hire. I find you want to make sure, particularly when you're looking for someone for your direct report team, that you have a rapport. And so instead of inviting that person to Baltimore for lunch or dinner or for overnight, it's about creating these coffee conversations, I'll call them. And so I've sat at my kitchen table having coffee conversations with a couple of candidates that I'm really interested in, just to build that rapport. It's not easy to do. Hey, Loren, you probably have some things you'd add on this one.
Yeah, so I think even in the virtual environment, it's really key for us to ensure that we are providing high quality experiences for our candidates. So not only are we creating these coffee chats, we're doing virtual tours of some of our locations where we're hiring, and we've created some virtual onboarding and training that engages our newly hired candidates or our candidates that are considering us, and just preparing them for their new roles. So we've really had to lean into how we continue with the high quality experience, but operating in a virtual model. And the team has been very creative and used just the various technologies that we have available to us.
Yeah, and I would also add that, when things really started to shut down, call it mid-March, we had new leaders who were in the middle of onboarding, their first month or their first, 90 days. And we really needed to lean in heavily to those new leaders and new teammates to say, how can we support you during these unique times? And there's, no one size fits all, but it's really about engaging people and seeing what they need.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We've had to do similar things, and I think you have to be much more intentional when you're having to do things virtually. So
Yeah,
that's great insight.
And,
So go ahead, Mary.
I just add one other thing. I told you, we wouldn't be shy here. I also think as we're, this is another watershed moment, right? People are having children go back to school or not go back to school. There's definitely some fatigue that people are feeling against the backdrop of the pandemic. And so what may have worked in April or May may not work now, and we have to be willing to change it up. So that's the last thing I'd say before I let you go on.
No, that's a really, really good point. My team laughs every time I say be flexible, pivot, be adaptable, but those are the watchwords for today because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So great point. Thank you. So Loren, I'd love to circle back to you. It's obvious there's a lot of really great work going on by all of the leadership team at Comcast as it relates to diversity and inclusion. So how do you ensure the respective candidates know how deeply Comcast values diversity and promotes employee development? A few tips.
So I would just say that it's part of our culture to share our story, not only about the impact within our communities, but also for our employees and our talent team to share the work that we're doing in the D&I space. So it's a standard practice with our Comcast talent team that we highlight not only our benefits, but some of the work and some of the awards that we're extraordinarily proud of in the space of diversity and inclusion. We broadly market our role as being an employer of choice. And this year, we're really proud that we've received numerous awards. We were ranked number 7 in Diversity Inc.'s top 50 list, number 10 on the Fortune's best big companies to work for. And most recently, as I mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of work in the military community. Comcast was named and recognized by the Military Times as being the #1 company for veterans to work for. So really proud there. One of the other pieces that I would add is that when we're sourcing candidates, it's really key for us to ensure that we are diverse in how we advertise. So we look and we search across various platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, just ensuring that our message and the roles are out there and that people are viewing.
Okay, I'm going to jump in again.
Thank you, Mary.
No worries. Loren, you're having another audio issue. But I think, Loren, thought is, where we advertise, where we look for talent is so critical. And then, how do we interview talent and who's doing the interviews? And, it's not new news to say that you want a diverse slate of candidates. You want a diverse slate of interviewers too, in order to attract the best talent and be able to consider talent. I mean, I'm a 57-year-old white woman. I bring all my biases to the interview table. And if I'm the only one interviewing, I'm probably not giving people a great shake. We need to have diverse panels. You look like you may be back, Loren.
Wonderful. Okay, sorry about that again. So we do diverse interviewing platforms. We also ensure that our slates are diverse and the interviewing team is diverse. But also we try to connect many of our candidates with the content and hopefully they're customers too, so they're connected to the content. But we celebrate many affinity months here at Comcast. And so we have Black History Month, Pride Month, and we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. And so we do this by using our platform and Flex and creating partnerships where we can provide content on some other platforms. So in June, after the murder of George Floyd, we created a new editorial collection that hopefully many of you have seen, Black Voices, Black Stories. This is a resource not only for our employees, but for our customers too, to help educate, inform, and inspire content that's tied to social injustice, racial inequality, and just the empowerment of the Black community. We also celebrate Pride all year long, and we recently joined in with a partnership with Reverie, which is the first global queer streaming network, where on their platform, we will stream content around 6 compelling films that explore the lives of the LGBTQ community. And this will run through October. And this month, which is again, Hispanic Heritage Month, we're going to focus on sharing the stories of Hispanic Americans so they share their stories on our platform too. And finally, I would just say, as Mary mentioned at the beginning, Comcast announced a comprehensive multi-year investment of $100 million to fight social injustice, inequality around race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation and ability. So doing lots of work there just to ensure that our candidates understand just the value of diversity if they're looking at our organization.
That's great. And I love that you know how important it is for you to sell yourself to candidates in this marketplace. And I appreciate that so much.
It is. It's a big decision you make when you sign up with a company. I think it's kind of like marriage. You have to go into it with your eyes wide open, and there's lots of goodness here.
Agreed, 100%. Thank you. So Kelli, you're also Vice President of Care for Comcast Beltway Region, which I would think is a pretty large part of your workforce, correct?
That's correct.
So how does diversity and inclusion come into play in a customer service environment that must be uniquely challenging?
Yeah, I don't challenging. I think there's great opportunity there. So, our main theme when we work with our employees is really about building relationships. So whether you're trying to build them with your peers or building them with your customers, again, some of the same focus we have when we talk about our D&I efforts. But when you think about diversity and inclusion, people normally think about things that they can see, race, your age, your gender. If I'm a frontline care agent, I can't see any of that when I'm on the phone. But what our agents do know and appreciate is that the diversity of our workforce is a reflection of the diversity of our customers. So they try and leverage that. They try and find context clues in the course of their conversations to make sure that employees or that customers feel included in the conversation. They try and use their own personal experiences, their own diverse background in order to create conversations. We then make sure that as a leadership organization and team, we're helping our employees in this space. So we're helping to build their skills to further connect, to further build relationships, to further build trust and relatability. And we do that really by focusing on a quality program as well as certain behaviors. So we focus on behaviors like the art of listening, making sure that we're listening to our customers, the appreciation of understanding the experiences that our customers have had. Again, those same elements are critical to the D&I conversations that we're having today. And then I would say the last part of what we do in the customer service organization is that we really try and continue to figure out how do you further build and strengthen our skill sets. And so we do that by doing 2 things. We actively take our customers' feedback, and then we use that in our team huddles. We provide that to our frontline employees so they hear how customers are feeling, what their thoughts are. And then we have really great dialogue on what could we have done differently, what really resonated, what really allowed us to make a customer feel that we were relating to them. And so that's kind of our cycle. I would circle back to what Mary was talking about earlier about kind of working in a virtual space. These huddles that I'm talking about are critical to kind of the culture that we've built in the customer care organization. And so when you think about going virtual and what does a huddle look like now, we've really had to re-engineer and reinvent in that space. But again, I think it goes right back to all the things we've been talking about. We've been trying to get feedback from our employees on what's working, what's not. We've included them in the redesign of our huddles to make them more effective in a virtual space. So again, we're also trying to be the role model and to model the same behaviors we want them to have.
That's great. I love that you're having them be part of creating the solution. That's going to make it so much more impactful. Great strategy and tactic that any of our small businesses could take from this webinar. Thank you. So I'd like to switch back to Loren and ask you, since opportunities for development and growth are attracting employees, will you share what strategies Comcast is using to recognize talent and create those opportunities to grow, and how you ensure that those opportunities are accessible to everyone?
Great, thank you. So we have a number of things that are in the pipeline and have been in the pipeline for quite some time, and some new things for this year. So one of the things that we launched most recently is it's career development plans. We call them CGPs, career growth plans. We've changed the name a couple of times. So whatever we want to call it, it's a plan around your development. And so each of those plans really focuses on employees having a plan built on experience, exposure, environment, and education. And they meet with their leader to discuss this plan. And really this conversation helps ignite not only a go forward plan for the leader and the employee, but it helps us as leaders understand what content we need to be preparing to help our employees achieve their professional development goals. And also it helps us understand where employees want to go, what they want to do. So again, we can help get them there, because in this space, the more we focus on employees and helping them reach their desired professional career, or even if it's a totally new career line, it really provides us an opportunity to retain and keep an engaged workforce. I would love to give a shout out to what we call our Comcast University. Comcast University provides a wealth of opportunities for our employees to develop themselves and participate in learning opportunities that focus on not only business acumen, but some of our softer skill sets too, around customer interaction, interviewing skill sets, things of that nature. So I would say those are some of the key spaces that we focus on there. I would just like to hit that at Comcast, our employee experience is just as important as our customer experience. And so we continually are asking for feedback in this space, and have and are implementing some new tools from our performance management tool that went from having conversations around your performance and development from twice a year to 4 times a year because employees asked, right? And then we're implementing a new tool in January where employees will be able to directionally say, if I want to be, currently I'm sitting in a supervisor role, I want to be a director one day, looking at the directors within our organization and seeing their career paths and what developmental opportunities that they took part in. So all around, we're really trying to care for our employees as much as we're trying to care for our customers. And that's really important to us. And it always has been.
Wow, it's tremendous. There's a lot of passion coming from all 3 of you today about just how dedicated you are to Comcast, your employees, and this topic. So thank you. That's great. So one final question to each of you, if you would, in turn. What keeps you committed to the diversity and inclusion work that you've talked about today? Mary, we'll start with you.
Okay. So I'm a mother, I'm an aunt, I'm a neighbor, I'm a leader, I'm a business person. And, as trite as it sounds, I'll go back to that old adage, if not me, who? If not now, when? And I want to make sure that I live out the rest of my life really leaning in a very personal way.
Great, thank you. How about you, Kelly?
I'll echo what Mary said a little bit. I'm a mom, so it does often boil down to my children. Not only just my children, but I think about setting forth a path for my children's children. So I today want to make sure that they are confident in the person that they're growing up to be. I want to make sure I'm helping them to navigate the complexities of the situations they may find themselves in. So I think it's because of that my commitment is really to be involved, right? So I want to be a role model. I want to help support them, participate with them. In the workplace, it means that I want to roll up my sleeves and I want to be able to sit at the table and be able to affect change. It really is why, D&I and D&I council lead is really a passion of mine. It's a great opportunity to be part of work that I think and know that will help to create an inclusive and safe work environment in my workplace that I think can be transcended outside of the workplace. So I think it's all those items. And the last thing I would say is I'm really passionate and I think excited about what I see today. I think the conversations, the activism that is happening really gives me hope and really shows me that the power of people coming together can do an awful lot. And for that, it can mean a lot for my children. So that's why it's important to me.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Loren, how about you?
So just as everyone else, I'm a mother. So I do a lot of this because I want my children to see their pathway forward and just the opportunities. They're amazing and they're going to do amazing things. And I want them to know that the playing field is just wide open for them. I also do it because I come from a very strong history of women who have really put in the work to show me that no is not acceptable, that if I have a goal, if I have something that I want to achieve, that by God, you're going to do it. And you have to eliminate those obstacles and work really hard to achieve those. And I'm not going to let them down because they've loved me and embraced me, and it's not an option. And then lastly, I would just say from an organizational standpoint, I've been a part of Comcast for 20 years. It's been an amazing experience. It's an amazing company. And the point we are today has, the point and the work that we've done this year and that we've done over the last several years, it's warmed my heart. It makes me so proud to let people know that I work for the organization. And we just have amazing individuals that work for us, and they look to us to really bring this forward and have the conversations and make these investments. So it's just part of my fabric.
That's great. DNA for all of you, it sounds like. It's wonderful. So at this time, I'd like to turn to a question and a comment that came in the chat room during the program today. And this first comment is really a wonderful comment. She says, "Coffee conversations are great. Candidates seem more relaxed and their true selves are brought out." And I think that what that speaks to is the way that you've created different opportunities and different settings to really get to know your candidates, which is something we've talked a lot about here at the Chamber. And I commend you for providing different opportunities, because the traditional nerve-wracking interview process, I think, is even more difficult in the digital world. So that was great, and I think really on point. We love that. And the question is multi-part, and you guys can decide who's going to answer this one. So do you have suggestions of places to recruit people of color? Do you have suggestions of what to say in job descriptions that avoids discouragement for people of color to apply? Loren, maybe you have things that you'd like to say about this?
Yes, so I would say from a advertisement perspective, there are, I believe that you can post your roles on diverse sites. So you just have to find the sites and the organizations that work best with you or for you and your companies. So invest in those relationships, and more than happy to help if anyone wants to reach out to me to create those connections. But really, it's not a one size fits all. So you need to make sure you're creating a relationship with an organization that connects to your values and where you want your role in the level of roles that you have that you post to. So lots of good information there that we can help with. And the second part of the question is that I think from a job description standpoint, we have to ensure that we're not advertising a role above what we need. So at times, I think we add attributes to a role because it would be fantastic to have, right? Like you just want to bring in this phenomenal person with all of these, degrees and certifications and things of that nature. But it's not required for the job, and so or for the role. And so don't over-engineer your job descriptions. Make sure that they are asking what you need in that candidate, not more. Not, what you would love that person to be 10 years from now. Remember, this is when you hire someone, you're hiring them for the role. And if they want to grow and develop in it and you want to make that investment, that's phenomenal. That's what we all should be doing as employers and as leaders. But don't over-engineer your job description so it eliminates people, because the more certifications and additional things you add, it slims down and narrows down your population of candidates.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
I would just add, Lauren, right on. Great example of that is when you have in your job description a need for a bachelor's degree or some type of, that really serves to kind of close the door to a lot of really great candidates, and it really isn't relevant to the role. I'd also, we're so rich with our historical Black colleges and universities in this geo area. They're great partners for hiring and for understanding, for hiring for potential candidates. The community colleges, great places to have relationships with to bring in diverse candidates. So we're blessed here in this geo area with some great universities, some great community colleges, and they have been a resource for us and a partnership that we hope to continue to grow.
Kelli, would you like to add anything?
No, I think Mary and Lauren hit it. I would say, though, from an HBCU, the historically Black college, also look for opportunities for things like internships. Give people an opportunity to learn about the workforce, about how it is to work in different locations. Oftentimes our college students have never had that. So when they go to an interview, sometimes they feel ill prepared to have the context and the experience. And so I think giving people the opportunity just to be exposed is a big deal. And it's an opportunity to build a relationship with the college, but also to give back to the college world.
That's a great point. And we take that very seriously here at the Maryland Chamber of Commerce too. And my directive to all of my leaders is that this is as important an experience for this student as it is for us to gain that support, and that it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we really give them a bird's eye view of what might happen and that we coach them and help them to be successful. So that's great to hear. So this last one came in for Loren. Loren, how does diversity and inclusion help Comcast grow?
So I think from a standpoint of diversity and inclusion, it helps us so much in the space of creating a space for innovative, creative, diversified thought. So, I'll give an example of where we were and where we've come from. So, we talked about in the past, we've done internships. And over the last several years, we really have created this space of hiring just a multitude of generations. And with that these new voices, we've created some really cool initiatives. One I'll call out is our gig program. So gigs are really neat. So they give our employees who are interested in a developmental opportunity and the ability to apply to a need within an organization. It could be short-term, it could be long-term, and long-term being, generally no greater than a year. Short-term being, it could be a month or so, but it really provides our employees an opportunity to develop, to create new relationships, to have exposure to a new part of the business. They're advertised on our gig site. They're open to all. And it's just what I would say, by having new voices, by having just a variety of different generations working with us, this has been a great opportunity for us to add kind of this new look at, we don't need a permanent role, but it's work or a project that needs to be completed. And it's a pretty cool way for you to have this opportunity. So I would just tell you, diversity and inclusion just adds, it's kind of like Ben and Jerry's. It just provides lots of different flavors to your workforce, to how you engage, to your customer experience. It just makes it pretty amazing to walk through the door every day.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, the Ben and Jerry's ice cream reference is absolutely over the top for me. So I'm all about that. And their philosophy as a company really resonates beautifully with all of this. So I just want to thank you all for participating today. This has been a wonderful, robust conversation. You three ladies are an amazing powerhouse. And I saw Mary's comment. Yes, you are very lucky to work as a team, the three of you. It's been inspirational. It's so important to my team at the Maryland Chamber and Foundation to make sure that we're helping people come along in this space. We were all sort of stymied at the beginning, trying to figure out what was our pathway. How could we create impact? And by engaging those of you who are already deeply involved in this space, we want the smaller businesses across the state to take away useful tools, to be able to take action. I want everyone to know that Comcast has produced a wonderful one-page tip sheet. We will be posting that on our website along with the recording. So if anyone that you know wasn't able to participate today, pass it along. The link will be there. It's on our YouTube channel. It's also on the Equity and Inclusion resource page, which you can find right on the top tab on the Chamber's website. And we will continue this work and this conversation. There are 4 more sessions in this series. And again, we just are so grateful that Comcast could join us today and share their wonderful expertise and experiences. It's just been really, really valuable. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.